Cotter. Bob is the director of Xavier's Office of Discovery Services, and he is an expert on films, and he's going to talk with us today about Christmas classic films. Bob, can you start by identifying some of the most famous, what we would consider Christmas classics?
Sure. I think the one that is a touchstone for everyone is It's a Wonderful Life. Certainly, The Bishop's Wife is another one that people gravitate toward. You certainly see it a lot during the Christmas season. Holiday Inn, White Christmas. A lot of the classic films are actually from that post-war 40s period, which is very interesting because they still seem to attract a younger audience, as well as the audience that was contemporary when they were made.
What about in earlier and more contemporary times? What are some of the films we would consider to be Christmas classics?
Well, I think certainly, though it's a TV special, the Charlie Brown's Christmas is one that's now crossed almost 3 generations as far as an important film. Recent films like Elf, the Santa Claus series with Tim Allen, Christmas Vacation. What's interesting is that we certainly have a full inventory of classic films, but there seems to be a need to watch them and watch them by multiple generations, and also Hollywood seems to feel a need to keep creating them. So there's obviously an interest, and it obviously touches something besides a commercial interest in the audience.
Can you talk for a moment, expand on what you've just said, about some of the common qualities that these films that we consider to be Christmas classics have in common?
I think it's the Christmas spirit that they all speak to, and that has many definitions. It's charity, it's compassion, it's benevolence, it's thinking of the community outside yourself. It's sort of a purity of spirit. And I think in all these Christmas films that there's a sort of a personal or a collective journey to restore that Christmas spirit. Find it, reacquaint yourself with it. Usually it's under some kind of challenge. And in most of the films, there is a catalyst character, someone who's either divine or somewhat magical, who helps the community reestablish itself with those Christmas values.
Let's take a moment and talk specifically about A Wonderful Life. What is it that makes it such a classic?
Well, I think certainly it's the personal journey of Jimmy Stewart's character. And he's sort of a living representative of what's the right thing to do, certainly in small town America. You know, thinking of others, subordinating your personal desires to the need of the community. It also has the divine character. There's an angel who, when he's at his lowest ebb, even considering suicide, it's the angel who comes in, intervenes, and shows them that wonderful sequence where he sees what life would have been like in Bedford Falls had he not been born. And all the values that he's fought for in his life and that are shown to us in the movie to be important are under threat. All that condensed into a bad banker character, Mr. Potter. So the divine intervention helps Jimmy Stewart reestablish himself, which then allows the community at the end of the film to reestablish themselves with the Christmas spirit.
And what about a more contemporary classic? And I'm thinking of Chevy Chase and his film. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, there's almost another subgenre where the catalyst character is not really a divine or a Santa, but is actually a value system internal to one of the main characters, in this case Chevy Chase. So even though it's a comedy, and even though he's aggressively trying to over-decorate his house, that's one of the central themes. He has problems with his neighbors. He has problems with his family. But for the most part, he's the carrier of the flame of the Christmas spirit. And so it's his obsession with it, and it's his perseverance that finally brings everyone else into an awareness of what Christmas should be about.
In conclusion, Bob, would you wrap up your thoughts and tell us a little bit more in closing what you think about Christmas classic films?
Well, I think what's interesting, and I see this through the eyes of my children perhaps, is just how all ages are attracted to films of all ages, meaning the contemporary films certainly resonate with the younger audiences. My children are just in college age. But they certainly are strongly attached to the classic films as well, the films from the 30s and 40s and the 50s. So I think that the desire to make Christmas films part of everyone's personal Christmas ritual is very strong, and people, where they normally discriminate between black and white films and more modern films, that discrimination seems to go away with Christmas films. They're all equally important.